Okay, let's get started. I'm going to recap on the procedural versions. So that the only one we studied, the only one we studied on the registration platform, had anyone write code in the previous session? That's what we done for you. You learned of the code and you try to write a registration platform. The only one that I see free platform is on and I told you that this is and I want to take this as that in order to give you feedback. That's it. Okay? And notice what we do here in this module is just about design mindsets. There's no code. When you learn code from the lecture or the lab, and just immediately this is this. Okay? It's just mindsets. How are you going to adapt this ideology that we are introducing here into your project? Whether this is implemented in Dart and I don't know, in C++ and whatever language. Okay, so I'm going to recap on the procedural codes, then we're going to take an intro to OOP. And most probably, there is a 1 hour after this session, so I'm going to take this out. Let's start with the first version. I'm just going to quickly recap what we did. We said that we have a unique approach in order to let modules communicate with each other. Right? So the first module was the user interface, we take effort, and then this is supposedly calls the register. We only have register. This is the only use case, the only function. So register and load to define, right? And the other domain, the last module is access that access define. And here is the CRUD operations. For all of the CRUD operations. CRUD means what? Write, read, for functions. But anything that can be generated and used to access and modify. Access and modify. Right? Access boundaries, modify boundaries. And there is a function that does this, put it in the data access file. Okay, and this is the discussion that we have in the previous sessions where we said what goes where should you define things, and where you should call them, where should you use them. Okay, so anyway, we said that the identifier is the one or the client code that is going to be using all of these functions. The problem with this one is that the identifier can immediately, if we delete this file, right, it can drop out the entire system. We don't have a system anymore because this is the one that is linking everything. That's one observation. The second observation is logical by and add that access point, they have no communication between. Like there is no import from here to there. There is no communication. Okay? All right. So we started off with this kind of structure. We said that we have this user, this is the domain, this is the front end, display for simulated immediate file, right? And the back end has two parts. The first one is the logic, the code, right? The back end is language. If you choose Python, you can use Python, Dart, whatever. This is the back end language. And this is essentially begins the database. All the file that can be used to access the database. This is Python, and this is the file used to access the cloud operations. Okay? How do we? Okay, so we say that access defined. This is the old version. Okay. Right? This indicates on a real database that we do some kind of connection to database. Why is this important? Regardless of the system here. This function doesn't do anything more than it just fetches the file, the JSON file. Right? But realistically, this function is going to be used from your product to connect to database. If this database is local on your same laptop, then everything is going to be locally hosted, everything is good. But if you decide to have this database hosted in the cloud, things need to be efficient. This is a very, very difficult function. But anyways, this is a representation. We have the read and we have the write. What were the issues with the code? What were the issues with this code? By looking at tree, by looking at try, what were the issues? Design issues. What is the design issues with this one? We discussed this in the previous session. File back. This one? Yeah. Right. Okay, حاجة تانية. Anything else? Okay, so this is the issues with this code is as follows. We have read that also compares connection, right? So we have high coupling here. Every time we do the read, we need to make sure that compare connection is called with it, right? So the outer function needs to have this inner function itself. And since it's argument, function takes two arguments, right? We need to apply them from the outer function or the higher order function. Right. I remember. So the problem with this code is that this function relies on this function. If we do not have a connection, if you mistype this, right, or if you change the name, the signature, right, if you say that this signature takes two arguments instead of one, this change here, you are going to do this change in everywhere this function is called. Right? So if I'm using this function in 3 places in the code, I'm going to edit them in 3 places in the code. This is called high coupling. And this is called a non-reverse code, right? A code that breaks easily on the first edit, right? So we edit this signature, we add an argument, right? Then you change the name, and you're going to change everything related to this. Wherever this function was used, you're just going to update it. This is another robust code. This code is going to be easily break. Okay? So we have another robust, we have a high coupling, right, between this function and this function. Okay? Meaning that if we, for any reason, remove this function, the read is going to fail, it's going to crash, the write is going to crash. And the reason is in this line, I can tell you that in this line, we cannot find any definition for perfect connection. Right? So this is high coupling non-robust. We said something about principles, and you need to cover this, and you need to mention it clearly in your report. Saying a certain state of code, this code previously looked like that, and then we refactor it. Right? To accommodate some design patterns, some principle patterns. Right? One of the principles that we talked about is the dry principle. Don't repeat yourself. This means that you have redundant pieces of code or redundant function calls. Let's say that you have read and write. Most of them read the prepared connection. Let's say that you have update and delete. Update and delete, you are going to call prepared connection. Or redundant code. How do you observe redundant code? How do you immediately figure out that there are redundancies in your code? If you take a look at the code and immediately you see that certain lines appearing multiple times, the same exact line is appearing multiple times, this is redundancy. This is a good smell. Okay? So it violates the dry principle, it violates the absolute principle. And this is one of the solid principles. We talked about S from the previous lab. I'm going to talk about the O and the D. Okay? And there are solid principles, or these are the principles that are going to get you from a position like software developer 1 to software developer 2. It's going to get you from an intern to, I don't know, maybe a higher level, a higher salary, a promotion. So, senior responsibility means that a function needs to be doing only one thing. Ask you, what does the read do? How many responsibilities? How many things does the read do? One, actually, two. No. Yes, it opens the file. No, return is something in every function. Every function returns something. Right? So you are correct about opening the file. Yes, it accesses a file. Okay? What else? What does it do else? Repair connection, exactly. It connects to the database, it opens or accesses a file. Okay? So read does two things. Setting right. It prepares the connection, it opens or accesses a file. Right? So this is the same responsibility in the read and write. Finally, the execution routine. Right? We said that this routine is going to be used in the future to access a database. This database can be locally hosted or cloud hosted. So if this routine was redundant, every time you prepare the connection, every time you connect, you need internet connection, you need some firewall permissions. The database is not locally hosted, it's not the same laptop of yours, it's on the cloud. Right? This is inefficient routine. We need to make sure that this connection has its own ones. فلسه بعتها حاجه على تيم So these are the major code smells or design issues in this code, right? Later on we can add this. The refactor essentially requires us to realize something called close, right? Remember, for the current implementation, you say all procedure, right? This is all one. So if you take a look at the close, what is the difference? How do you take a look at this form? You're using that. What is the difference? How we refactor the code and using global reduce some of the issues that you mentioned, and actually do something higher. يعني اسمع والله انت بوكس So, take a look at this before and after. What is the difference? After fall back here as a variable. Okay, so but where did you reduce it on this? Sometimes where did you reduce it? Yes. In one of them, بص عليهم كده بص ما بين look at read right here and right here and read here and read here. You reduce your velocity. Where is that? Actually, it's the same one. I just changed the variable name, you know. But it's the same. You're right. Why? Exactly. In the right function, in the previous version, you needed to prepare the connection every time you perform a right operation or create or insert into the operation. Right? But in this version, I don't require this anymore. I don't have to perform the connection. No, it's not like this. How do you put them on it? Can anyone tell me what's the meaning of this refactor? Okay, so the meaning behind the global here. The global variable can be accessed from any function, but in order to reassign, to give it a new value within a function, and if I'm inside a function and I want to access a variable that is outside the function, in Python, you need to explicitly say that this function needs to be updated. You see this assigned operator? So you need to update it. But whatever value on the right hand side, you're just going to update it. So to update a variable that is outside of the function, you need to explicitly say that this variable can be accessed from the global scope. So from outside the function. Okay? So what does it mean? Why do we take away the prepare connection from the right side? The answer is easy because one would say, I can perform the read once. Okay? If I perform the read operation, the read function once, this means that the read is going to take care of the prepare connection, right? It's going to prepare the connection, it's going to assign the file back, and with this done once, right? Writer can access this input variable without the need to prepare the connection again. Okay? So the dependency now has changed. The dependency right arrived. The dependency here is that we need to perform the read once. Every time we need to prepare the connection database, this needs to be called. The read needs to be called. Now my question is this logical? Remember again, read is equivalent to, from SQL, is equivalent to select. It says if you're saying select star, select everything from a table. ركز معايا لو انت لسه كده بعيد اللي اتقال. ركز معايا تمام؟ So selecting everything from a table, reading everything from a table. Does it make sense that every time you select something from a table to connect to that? No, the connection needs to be happening without, this is a responsibility. We're still violating the SR principle, the same responsibility. Right? The function it does two things, it's doing two things. The first thing, it prepares the connection. The second thing, it does the operation, the little here, it does the select operation. So it does two things. So we are still violating the SR. We reduce the drive principle, the drive for violation, right? The redundancy in the right, but still there is a high coupling here. We need this function called inRead, and still the responsibility thing. Okay? But the only positive thing is that we now need to prepare the connection only once. Only once. But this needs to be done via the read function. So, and يعني just a note for you, if you want to update this is a standard operation. So if you want to assign a global variable, so Python just says that if you want to update a variable that's outside the function, just tell me that it's not global. If you want to access it, just access read. Here on the read, If you want to just change the value, you do not need to global store file back. يعني global we need it only to reassign. طيب. Okay. So what is the good and the bad again? Right now, all the sequence it doesn't do nothing. Access the file and writes, right? We can say it adopts or follows the file principle. There's no redundancy here. Okay? The efficient routine, the prepare connection is called only once. I don't need to connect the database every time I do a CRUD operation. So I'm doing this only once in the read function. But the problem and the bad thing is that the read still violates the single responsibility because the read is doing two things. A read tells the read function tells me has prepare connection, connect to the database, and it reads, and it selects. It functions on the code, it needs to be only one thing. This is how good design, how clean code should look like. تمام؟ هيفرق ده معاك انت في ايه؟ اللي ان شاء الله tomorrow if we finish this ان شاء الله correctly يعني. Tomorrow we're going to take automated tests. We gave you briefly this automated testing thing in the previous year, but tomorrow we're going to take this slightly in details. And you will see that the second you see in a function that there's a different function called the function called thing around that. So the second that you see that there's a different function being called in the outer function, I think you will see that testing is going to be a nightmare. Because instead of testing one responsibility, this is a read, so I'm going to test that I can read things from file directly. That's it. But now you're not testing this. You're testing. Can you connect your database directly? Testing can be from file directly. So the more responsibilities inside one function, the more testing code is going to be written for this function. Okay? Yes, but the effort that you're going to take in testing them. Why do you need to? Let's say that we've never used the global, right? And we just stuck to the first version. Now ده. تمام? On the left here. In this version, read prepares the connection and does the, does the read. Right? Prepares the connection, does the write. If you are going to test this, right? And there's something called test coverage. This is required for you in the report. Test coverage means that if there is a function, right? And we are going to write code for it. Now, if you write code that tests this function, then we can say that this function is covered. So if I have 3 functions, right? If I test all of them, I have 100%. Okay? If I test only 2 of them, let's say that you have 66%. It did again. Right? So that's about test coverage. And it's going to be required from you in the report to have a certain coverage. The more the percentage, the better. This means that you test everything. Right? And I'm going to request a minimum of 80% in tests. Meaning that you have tests like 8 functions. To make your life easier, if the function is doing too many things, you are going to be just repeating your tests. Okay, so here I'm going to write a test that tests the connection that database is done successfully. I'm going to write a test for the same function. If you didn't do this, this will not be. The test can fail. Someone will say that this test is meaningless because there are dependencies and you never tested the dependency. The code you need to test. And by dependency we mean another function code. How do you know that establishing the connection once via calling the read is going to work for you in the write? What if the internet drops whenever you perform the write operation? If the internet mustn't drops, if you need to a database that is on the cloud, right? And you, for example, connected to this connection once. Notice that this connection is not accessible. And this connection is accessible in the read. Do we return this file back? We don't return, right? Fine. This connection, you know what does it mean to say local scope in functions? Local scope. Exactly. Any variable defined within the function is going to die. Once this function finishes, whenever you reach this line here, this variable is going to be dead free. You cannot access it. So the connection that you made is just it's meaningless. You need to perform it again. File back here represents the connections for the database. So if I'm doing this locally and I'm not returning this value from the function, Okay? This means that this connection is locally written this function. So if this read is done, the connection is finished. The connection is terminated. Every time you need to perform a card operation, you need to do the connection. So the test, if you're writing the test given or assuming that the connection is already there, the test is just going to fail from the start, and you wouldn't even know how to debug this. You will not be even able to understand if the issue is with the writing itself, is with the prepared connection. You cannot tell. So in order to remove all the ambiguity, you will need to test everything all over again. This is the problem for redundant code. Okay?
انا عندي سؤال دلوقتي لو مثلا انا عندي في فانكشنز دول فيهم بنيتهم ديبندنسيز لو انا عملت تيست للديبندنسيز هل لازم اعمل الفانكشن اللي هي فيها الكولينج يعني مثلا عملت التيست الريد فانا اوريدي هعمل تيست للبريفيرد كونكشن مع
When the test for the read, you are going to test for the connection.
هل لازم اعمل تيست لوحده للبريفيرد كونكشن كمان ولا خلاص؟
See, this is the situation, right? When you test the read, you are going to test anything that is inside. Okay? So if you have this inside, you need to test it. This is the naive approach. The good approach, because it's unavoidable to have dependencies. It's unavoidable. It's not a thing to say that every time a function is going to be performed of only one thing. That's not true. In your code, you can see that there's a function calling another function, calling another function. It's fine. It's fine to have dependencies. But the point is that if we have multiple dependencies, first of all, let's try to not remove them, and you reach to the testing part, there is a dependency. It's called isolated dependency or decoupling dependency. When I write this, I'm going to decouple the connection. I'm going to simulate that there is some value that is equivalent to the connection. It's called a mock value. Remember the mock exam? It's just a mock value. A fake value in FDM. So if there is a dependency, if you find that the code, this is how it should be, I cannot refactor it any longer, right? But if there is a dependency, you need to decouple it, to fake it, and continue just testing the main functionality, the main responsibility of the function. Okay. Continuing with this last section here. So read is writing the responsibility, you put it in the database, accessing the verify. So that's the problem. And what do you think the conditional database needs to be called in a decoupled way? Connecting to the database, preparing the connection. It needs to be called regardless of the read, regardless of the write. I should not link connecting to the database to the current operations. Right? So I need to be called in somewhere, but for the current version of the code, for the current procedural version, the only solution that you can find is using globals. Right? If I can use globals, at least I can make sure that I can call it once, very rarely. Not the best thing, because we said that this needs to be called individually, regardless of the read, regardless of the write. But for the current version, this is what we have. How is this going to be a nightmare for me in the testing part? Because you will see that if this is the implementation that you chose, you are going to decouple this. Any dependency that is inside the read needs to be decoupled, needs to be faked.
طب انا دلوقتي لو احنا بنعمل بروجكت وفي مثلا انا خدت بالي منها بس انا يعني دلوقتي انا عارف ان انا ممكن نستخدم جلوبال بدل الفانكشن اللي هي الحته دي.
For the time being, you understand that global reduces redundancy to some extent. Whenever we get to object oriented, you will see that globals are going to be completely removed. Okay? بس كمل.
طيب انا بقول دلوقتي انا في بروجكت وفي كود سمارت كود اللي انا عامله كتير وانا دلوقتي يعني عرفت بوينت them اوت بس عايز اعمل لهم ريفاكتور ومش عارف فانا بقعد اعمل ريسيرش بقى على الحته الكود اللي انا كاتبها دي وهو الريسيرش دي هي اللي بتقول لي ايه اللي انا بغيره ولا ايه؟
No, no one. There is an option that you can go to Stack Overflow and post the question, tell them that this is the current version of the code. If I want to refactor this, if I wanted to make it either clean, we're talking about clean design here. This is our motto. If you talk about efficiency or optimization, this is not the motto. Efficiency means time complexity, space complexity. This is not the motto. So I'm talking about clean design, clean code. So you can do this. Go to Stack Overflow, post the question, tell them that this is the snippet of code. This function does this. What can I do? If you find a solution, then this is good. You're going to learn the hard way slightly. But if no one replied to you, and this is most of the case, someone is going to just give you a negative rating, and the person is going to be closed immediately, telling you just a single response. You did not do your research good. Okay? So instead of going to this path. This lab 1, lab 2, lab 3, and lab 4, it's not there to write code. And you can actually look at the lab and read them, just look them by the eye, and you'll understand the concepts. Okay? So try to understand the design concepts behind all of these refactors, the before and after that I'm giving you. Okay? And you'll understand the things that needs to be in your mind before you even start coding. That's why I'm saying that this is important. Before you start coding, you need to keep this in mind. Okay? So we start with a very, very naive implementation. Very bad implementation. But in mind, we know that this something called SR, single responsibility, dry, right? Dependency, all these coupling. So whenever you start refactoring, right, you will keep this in mind. You do it. تمام؟
يعني انا لو مع طول الوقت هبقى عارف يعني الحاجات اللي انا بعملها ريفاكتور من غير ريسيرش.
تاني كده؟
يعني انا لو كل اللي انا بعمله فيه وذاكرتهم مش هبقى محتاج ان انا ريسيرش يعني.
This is uncovering everything that you can do for.
يعني كل اللي موجود في اللاب.
Yes. Okay, so no, because someone is just assuming the same question. We're assuming that we can actually, let's say that the home page, okay? Any home page in any system, in Amazon.com, in any website, in an e-commerce system, the home page usually represents what you see products. Whenever you system, it products every time. Of course not, because these products are being selected read from labs, right? So there is essentially in the first version, the very first page of any application, in the very first banner, essentially there's going to be a rate operation happening behind the scenes. Right? So this is just an assumption that usually from the hard operations, the one that is going to be immediately invoked on a certain page on a certain banner is the real selected state. Global here. That's another question. Why doesn't it the right? But this is just the assumption. Okay? طيب شباب يعني I'm just going to say this for the last time. This model ده لو انت ما اهتمتش بالديزاين او لو انت طب يا ادهم انت عايز يا ابني حلو والله يا جماعه انزل الموديل ده لو انت ما فهمتش المايند سيتس اللي فيه الكونسبتس اللي فيه بعد الموديل ده لحد ما تتخرج تشتغل هتبقى بتكتب فور بوينت ومفيش حد هيسالك في الموضوع ده وانت بنفس السنه هتضطر انت تسيرش يعني ايه سوليد يعني ايه سؤال يعني ايه تراي يعني ايه ديزاين كاميرز فدوت وانس تعمل حاجه بس صعبه صح اعملها للاخر ده انت مش هتعرف الكلام ده بعد كده خلاص الكونسبت دي هتبقى مترسخه في بالك تمام because انا قلت لكم كمان في اول ليكشر انت في اخر سنه يفري ليفل 6 انت هتبقى بتمبلمنت مثلا ماشين ليرنينج ديب ليرنينج and so on okay your focus should not be there خالص your focus should be on the trend on the idea تمام بس if there's I don't know if there's a marking criteria مثلا بتقول لك ان لازم الكود يبقى clean لازم يبقى فيه clean architecture if you يعني have more dependencies to cover الموضوع هيبقى شاق جدا بالنسبه لك okay so this is the current implementation if you take a look really quickly انا مش هشرحها I'm not going to recap this okay so this is the lab access this is the user interface we give inputs the handler register calls the register function and then the report the only relationship between the modules are between the user interface and the logic so this imports from the logic so there's a link this file okay register or logic does not have a link with anything you see any report here there's no report in this file okay so this is standard read the list from values and updating the logic file. Same thing here, the same need to access a lower value of what you in the logic file to have a temporary copy of the users. And finally, there's the added file. Okay, so this is the added file. Remember, the wiring application, the client code. What is the problem with this code, if I ask you? Besides that, it has the importance of the system. All of the tools are made, so this was related to the system. We discussed this before. What's the issue here? There's something called, whenever I tell you that, whenever I tell you that, for example, you need to send ideally to class here. So you're looking at this, but you're not. We're going to see this is like abstraction here means that for the client. And the client here doesn't mean this code. The client can mean the end user. As a developer, the client created a library for him. Right? Let's say that we have created the system. This is the system that we have created. And we told the user we have created our own registration platform. So for any developer who wants to try it out, this developer is going to create something called what? The app requirement. That's not a client. Why? This app is used by any developer who's trying to use the system that you're building. So client here means the user, and the developer is going to wire all the pieces together. Okay? So my point here, is it a thing for the end user to know so much about the system? Again, how does this file know so much about the system? How can you tell if this file is knowing? The imports, this is one thing. It knows things to the database level, right? It imports from the database file. So to the level of the database itself, it knows about that. Right? It performs one of the cross operations. The client should not be responsible for reading or updating the from the database. The client should be doing only one thing. What is the functionality of this system? Registration, right? So the client should be only doing this. Okay? Yes, he needs only to call register. What is behind the scene? What is behind this registration function? All these other things. It's called abstraction. We should not be exposing too much information from our code. Only one piece of information that does the functionality, that does the use case or the user story. Okay? So, we said something about searching for a user, right? And our validation here was existing token, right? We needed to, before doing the, and I think all of you remember this from the previous session, right? Whenever we said that we wanted to register, we need to make sure that this user is not in the database. Right? We need to make sure that he's not there. So existence check should return false. Is not existent in the database. Right? Right. So we said that we are going to create a search function or a find function. And we had two versions of this function. The first one was explicitly saying that I'm searching by the username. And notice that the username is actually a column in my database, in my table. Right? So this UN here. Oh, Muhammad used to say that, right? محاول يمشي معاك كده شوف محاول يمشي بس هو محمد رضا تمام. I wanted to show you something. Okay, so going back to my database, my table, right? An SQL table, right? So this is the entire users table. Every chair is a row, and in every row you see how many columns? Two columns. A column that is called username, and a column called password for PS for password. Right? So the first implementation for the find by function. Actually, this is much better. ممكن نروح ونيجي ما بين الابلكيشن. Okay, so the first implementation was to find the username and you need to specify the username value. This only takes username values. The other one was the slightly version. There's a fat version. This is the refactoring version. So this version essentially says that you can actually use this as a very generic search function. To search by a certain code. You need to search only username. So just put username here and the value of user. And so on. Okay? So about this implementation, what was the value of this function? That is the value of this implementation. Find by username. جميل. The problem that found every time and this list is essentially the entire user table. And if I have thousands of user tables, they're going to be basically the same 1,000 elements list. Actually, I'm not much of كده. He was the one who noticed this issue. The issue is in this if statement. اللي هو UN delta بتاعها الأساسي. تمام؟ The issue is that there is high covering of the database. This implementation means that I know that inside the user's table there is a column called what? UN. If I go to the database of the table and I dropped the column, right? Or I altered the name of the column to be instead of UN, because UN is just it's not readable. I can just call it, I can rename it into username. Then once you do this edit, this function is not going to, it's going to break. It's going to tell you that in the database there's nothing called UN. So there's a high common between you, this code, and the database. Okay? Another thing, which module do you think that this version should be placed in? Yes, it's the username. Which is that instead of calling it UN, it's code. But you need to change the code. Exactly, this is what we say whenever we call that this code is non-robust. This code is going to break. Okay, so still this code is non-robust. Right? Meaning that if I edit the database, the code on the database, I need to edit the code in order for everything to work. So many edits in every web. Tamam? And this is the issue that you are highly coupled to what? To the database. Okay? So another thing that we can discuss here, the implementation.
Every time we change something, and this or whatever we change, we don't use it.
The solution is this one. The generator. And instead of relying on a certain value, a certain value, right? I'm just using a generic value. So if exactly, we don't call it. So this is what I say whenever you say you need to define the function, you need to think of a way to define a function, and you need to think for a way to call a function. The definition here is just too generic. Okay? I define it in a way that whatever the case is, if I place UN and the value to be Ahmed, for example, this will work. If I place this to be PS for password and the value is a password value, this will work. Okay? Also, sorry. My question here, do you think that it is correct to place both functions in that access file? No. David. What goes where? Okay. You think that this function and this function should be defined in the data access file. This file, I think that's the name of the file information. A data access that this is the file that precedes any database link. It precedes database link, and this is what does the select that sits into the delete the update. Okay, so do you think that this function should be in the data access file? Link.
Should be solution.
Which one? Both of them. Okay, both of them should be in the logical part. Link. Why?
So then we are taking the information from the user.
Yeah.
Before them with the external direct comparison and
Okay.
So in logic, or just in logic.
Yes.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. Let me just edit the answer of forgetting person for asking this correctly. Find by usually this one. This is explicitly related to which table? The user's table. And in which this is the register function. Fine. So, and you can tell that it's related to the user table. Okay? So this function, since it's explicit, you can tell from the name, find by user name. It's not a generic search function. Let's say you place in the logic file. With the register, not register, with the register. This needs the logic file. The second one is too generic. It can work with any table. It can work with the user's table.
طب انا ليه احطها في logical product وانا already عندي ده بيسيرش for it.
No, I just have two versions in front of you. I'm just saying if you choose to stick with this one, where should you place it? And if you choose to stick with this one, where should you place it?
يعني انا لو عايز اكتب الفوق بس مش هحط ده access.
Yes, definitely. صح. And if you stick with this one, with the generic one, which immediately can work with any table, there is no table, table-based implementation here. We can put this in the data access. Fine. Exactly. It's generic. It doesn't look for a certain column value in your tables. Okay? طيب.
So let's see the answer here.
So this is related or related to database. And let me just say something. I told you that it's a bad thing to put table-related stuff or table-related communication into the function. So however, it's not a good thing to relate a column being inside a function. This is not entirely true. I'm just saying this for the current level. Whenever we get to the functional software architectures, you will see that this data access, how many data access files do we have? One. So let's say that you have a user. What is the idea here? What is the idea of the product? We have an expense tracker.
اللي هو e-learning system ده.
e-learning أو e-learning assistant. Okay, so and everyone here is doing the 3 ideas. كل اللي قاعد بيعمل 3 منهم. يعني كل اللي قاعد مختار واحدة من الثلاثة. طيب, let's go with the e-reading one or the e-learning one, okay? Say that you have it's related to books, right? It's slightly related to books. So we have a user table or accounts table. We have a books table. Maybe you have, I don't know, a subscription table. Okay? Later on, actually, to understand the scope of this module, it's too big. Right? So whenever we see multiple tables in the future, instead of having only one data access to file, you will have data access for books, data access for users, and data access for subscription. Sometimes you can do that, but this is too simple. Our implementation here is too simple. But sometimes you will see that you need to include data from the table. In your implementation, you need to say that I'm going to access the UN call. I'm going to access the password call. It's unavoidable. I need to access this table's data, right? So once you have a file that works on the user's table, and another function in the same file that works on the books table, and another function in the same file that works on the subscription table, this is violating the single responsibility of the script itself. The file is doing so many things that are not related, and this file is considered to be non-cohesive file. Non-cohesive file means that your script functionalities that all functionalities follow write, read, and update and delete. But all of these 4 are really implemented for every table. There's way too many responsibilities, and it's not cohesive. Right? So later on, you will see that this is going to be acceptable as long as you create and have access to the file for every. Yes. Yes, this is عندنا في الشركة, this is how it works, and this is how something called a clean architecture actually. That's the question. That you have this is what you will be feeling like. It's too many files, but I know that a junior developer joins the team, and you are asked to create a search by address book, right? Where should you put this? How immediately the access file for the users on the accounts table? So I'm just going to go to this file and open it. The most annoying problem any junior will see or any intern is that you will be asked to do something and you will implement the definition or the function كده إن شاء الله. But the problem is that you will confuse so many developers around. No one understands why did you put find by in the user interface file? Why did you put it in the logical file? Okay, so having an architecture here really matters. And knowing or showing that you understand the layers, the architecture, the domains, obviously really matters. Okay? For the time being, keep it simple. ايه؟ ما انا بقول لك عشان احنا لسه ما كملناش we didn't discuss this yet. But for the time being, keep it simple. Just have one data access to provide, and later on يعني ان شاء الله in the next week I'm going to tell you exactly what this is going to be looking like and what each data access is going to be called by. مين اللي هيكون الراجل ده؟ مين اللي هيستخدم الفايل ده؟ Okay. Alright, so this is too specific, find by username, we place it in logic. This is too generic, we can place it in data access.
Okay. نكبر البتاع دي ازاي؟ Okay, so I just want to have a quick case study. A quick case study. A quick case study. تمام. Where should they be defined? In that axis or in the business use case? Some people call it not the logic behind business logic. It's the same thing. Alright? Okay, what is a helper function? In this case, find by is considered to be a helper function. Why? So we have the registration function, right? And we just need a function that does the check. Before we do, register someone. In the database or not. So this existence check is a partial part of the logic. It's a part of the logic. Find a function if you want to separate your coding, your implementation. I can actually take this code loop and put it inside the registration or the registration function immediately. But someone will say, I want to be more than and I want to place this loop inside a function that does some partial logic. In this case, it's a defined function. Okay? This partial logic thing is considered to be a helper function. Understand what is helper function now, صح? طيب. So let's take this case study here. احنا هندخل في الاوبجكت النهارده. Okay. Let's talk about separation of concerns. We said that the S function. Some people refer to the S as slightly different boat. So let's take a look at this case study. We said that in the case of find by username, this is too specific, right? So if it's too specific, I can place it inside what? The logic.y. هنا, تمام? So too specific, define it with the business use cases. The business use cases are what? The login and the register. Yes. نفس الحاجة. I'm just discussing where should things be placed. In the other case, whenever we say that this is too generic, we put the generic one with the generic clause right here in the data access, and we can call it here. Like this. This one, it's gonna be called within the same file, but in this case, you need to import from data access the find by in order to use it within the logic.y. طيب حلو. كلنا كده متفقين على نفس الكلام. Let me introduce a new requirement, right? Essentially, that so say as a register using username, email, password, 3 things and stuff. So this is a group user story, right? I mean, that obviously it has some partial limitation back in the day, or it has some partial limitation done in previous ones. But it needs to be added, and some implementation needs to be added. So if we have an email introduced, we need to do an email existence check. Previously we done it. Okay. So keyboard is early. So previously we done username existence check. تمام. دلوقتي هنعمل email existence check. Okay. So the question here, if you want to be too specific, we can add a function called find by email and define it برضو in logic.y. But how many changes do you think should be accommodated? Let's take a look at this one. تمام. Let's say that we have find by username, find by email. تمام. Since this is too specific, we just want to put it in the logic.y or the slide. تمام. طيب. Let's say that I'm going to use find by email. I'm just going to focus on the register one. Right? So in the registration, I need to do 2 existence checks. Right? Is the current user in the database? Is the current email in the database or not? Right? So from your perspective, how many problems within this implementation? How many changes we need to accommodate? If we in the error function, right? In the register. If we have error functions that needs username, we need to refine username from that function.
If the function needs email, we need to provide email from the other function. So this is not going to end. This is an endless hellish loop.
طب ما خلينا على نشر انا فاين باي بس لا فاين باي وبعدين
أنا فاهم. I'm just taking the first case. I'm just saying if you chose the first case, this is how the code should look like, and this is how many changes should be accommodated. تمام. So we still have high coupling, right? This is coupled to the, يعني this is coupled to these, right? If this needs one argument, you're going to pass it from the outer function. تمام. And there are two functions. You are using essentially two functions inside the register. Okay? What if we need more information? Let's say a new groomed user story is saying the following. Let's say I want to just email a password at the address. I want to just email password 1 and password 2 for confirmation, right at the address. Doing this, breaking the signature here you need the header function. Right? Every time you update the signature, this is a code snap. Right? So what is the solution for this? And this is essentially the register is considered to be non-robust, and it is violating some. This is the second principle of the control principle. Okay, so with the O, it's the second principle that we are going to work on today. Again, more principles that you cover, and you try to accommodate in your refactoring, in your code base, the more rates that you have. This is not doesn't mean we have. We need to implement structured clean app. Yes, the refactoring is the most important thing in this module. You can learn and you can find an e-reading system or an expense tracker all over the internet. 2053 يعني everything has been implemented already. مفيش حاجة there's nothing new. So what is the point of just asking for the entire semester, no exams, no whatever, just build the app? You can't build the app. I don't have grades. That's fine. But the thing is, we look for clean and structured code. Okay? Done. So this is not robust code. We are violating something called the open source principle. The open source principle is actually means it is open for extension. Open for extension. Whenever we say you should always you say that you need to extend the feature. This means that you are not using inheritance. In a way, you're not using inheritance. Okay? So, should be also extensions. If I want, let's say that in my system I have a user. This user can be a student, right? This user can be an instructor. At some point, I just want to introduce IT elements, a new view, a new user. Okay? So, I should be easily able to create a new subclass. So we need to be able to do a subclass, create a subclass for the IT element, for the element. Easily without creating the code. If you find yourself, every time that you do a subclass, every time you create a subclass, you try to go back to the original code and modify things, then in this case you can see that you are violating the open source principle. The original code base should not be touched, but I should be able to extend to add to it easily. In this case, it's probably always not the case. Every time that I want to add a new feature here, I'm just breaking the already implemented feature. I'm breaking the signature. وطبعا الدefinition is going to be changed and so on. Please ask me. I'm going to be straight up to the point. No one is going to tell you anything about this, and you are going to deal with this the hard way whenever you graduate. So if there is something that you need to ask about and try at home, just please do, yani.
Speaking of trying at home, okay. What's your recordings?
Okay, this is recording, and I'm recapping the previous things. Recordings هي بتخلي الشخص اللي قدامي ليزي شويه، ان هو انا عارف ان الحاجه ريكوردد فانا هضيفها في اي وقت Okay, I'm going to record the sessions from now. ماشي? Okay? طيب. But this is not going to be يعني a thing يعني every time I'm going to record it in session. Okay?
دي بس ممكن تبقى ريكوردد وتنزل بعد اللعبه عادي.
خلاص اوكي.
تنزل بعديها بس مش هتبقى موجودة.
خلاص اوكي. اوكي تمام. I have no problem. أنا بسجل معاكم السنة اللي فاتت. أنا فاكر بس إنه أنا حسيت السنة اللي فاتت في أول ترم إن الموضوع كان some people took the recordings and ran away. It's granted. Yes, it's always there, so you can study it any time. But anyways, خلاص we can record.
عايزين نعمل لاب الصبح.
هي دي بعد المحاضرة يعني.
محاضرة مش
كلمها.
كلام بديل اساسا.
أنا واخد بالي.
بس هي احسن من الاخر بصراحه.
إيه؟
احسن من الاخر بصراحه.
أحسن ليه؟
احسن من اللي هي تبقى لوحدها ثلاثه.
والله بجد ده حقيقي. من آخر اليوم كده أنت بتبقى مش مجمع.
واحدة الثلاثة بكرة دي احنا بنيجي عليها هي بس.
أنت ما عندكش حاجة جديدة؟
الأربع الخمسية دي بس مش آخر اليوم فعلى الأقل
Sorry. If you want to change the time of the lab, try to يعني عبد الله ممكن submit a request بالاتفاق يعني. دكتور في ريكوست ثانية يعني عشان يوم. طيب خليني بس أكمل. So the initiative to solve this end-to تمام. The solution right, is something called data OS or data transfer OS. This is advanced and this is going to be discussed in software architecture. And there's something called interface and abstract classes like the electric and so interface and abstract classes. DTOs. I'm going to cover this, but these are essentially the solution. This is what's going to prevent this nightmare from happening. Every time you have a problem, you're just going to bring a signature. You're going to add to the definition. تمام؟ طيب. This is the other way around. If we start with the generic. طيب. So we have the generic one. This is where we have the defined bar and we define the bad axis. Notice that here we're just calling the same function. We're not calling two different functions. So if I'm going to decouple any event that is existing, I'm just going to decouple this once, right? For one function. Right? And it's totally obvious that because of the columns here. Okay, but we still have coupling. Coupling means that the signature of the outer function is tied to the signature of the inner functions. The good thing, we are using one generic function instead of using two. يعني هنا we were using two of them by name and by email. Okay, and I just want to give you a simple SQL implementation to let you know what things are going to look like. Amen? Whether you're about to SQL or not, yeah, I'm just going to give you an example kind of based on the previous history. So if you have a search a generic function like find by the column name and the value, initially the implementation, the query, the SQL query is going to look like this. You took the line operator, right? You remember the line operator? شباب فاكرين اللاين اوبريتور فروم ذا اسم؟ كم واحد فاكر اللاين اوبريتور؟ Like essentially that whenever equals here means the certain value, بالضبط the exact value. But like essentially that let's say wildcards. This one wildcards mean what? Let's say مثلا someone is called Muhammad. So if I have مثلا Muhammad as a value, right? The wildcard before means that any name before Muhammad is going to be grabbed, and the wildcard after means that any name after Muhammad is going to be grabbed. So essentially, is Muhammad, and there's a placeholder before, and there's a placeholder after. This is what the line does. Not exact matching, it's just pattern matching. Right? So this is what it's going to look like. From the column, I'm just going to pass the value to this one, and from the value, I'm just going to pass the value to here. Right? So SQL should not intimidate you. It's too easy to apply. Right? طيب احنا في الداتا اكسس we put the cloud based functions يعني any function that immediately accesses the database or manipulates the database. The access is really
يبقى هتحطها ده بس بتغير حاجه هتتعدل حاجه تمام؟ طيب.
So most helper function mostly performing some validation or looking up or searching. These are the helper functions that we have seen so far. تمام. Can be reworked either to fit into the CRUD or either to fit into the business logic. تمام. And we have seen يا ماجد both cases. The case that we put a helper function called find by name in the logic, and another case where we put find by تمام in the CRUD file, in the data access file. تمام. But there are certain situations where helper functions,
it cannot be anywhere else. It needs to be in this function. And if we put it in a different place from the scope of the project, you will be downgraded. From the scope the corporate اللي انت شغال فيها هتسيب البروجكت شغال اصلا. يعني هيسيبك مثلا
يعني حاجه كده ان انت تراجع مثلا المعلومات اللي عندك او وات ايفر يعني. مش عايز اقول هيطردوه يعني بس يعني these things are major. Okay, let's take an example. Let's have this user story.
Let's say that we have a restaurant reservations. And this to view my previously placed reservations. To not look at this. Just leave this one from the أنا عارف يلا يعني بيعرف حموضة يعني بس تمام. Let's say as a customer I want to view my place reservations that are based on the counter seats. Right? So, on a restaurant reservation system, you have place one reservation. One reservation, one 4 seats. The other one 6 seats and so on. So you just want to select them based on the seats. Okay? But if I want to do a function, see that, and you just want to start with the following. If you want the front end, if you want to build the page, the HTML page that does that, go ahead and do it. But by the end of the day, you're going to start thinking from the database or from the back end or the database. Right? One would say, I'm going to create the table that I need in the database, all the tables that I need at the start. Let's say I know that there's a restaurant reservation system. So probably there's a customer table, there's an order table, and there's a restaurant table. So one would say, I'm going to create all of the tables ahead of time. Right? One would say that I'm going to write the front end first. I'm going to build the HTML pages first. But as you can see, in this user story, how many things needs to be implemented? Not just this. My places. How many things? No, I'm talking from a higher level, from the layers level. Layers, I mean front end, back end database. How many things should be implemented? The three things, entirely the three things, right? So in a certain user story, in a single user story, like this one, if you say that you want to view your place reservation, this means essentially that from the front end in the same user story, from the front end you are going to build the page. Maybe this page is going to be labeled as history, ordered history, right? So this is the HTML, the front end. You go back to the back end and you start writing the code, right? That does the query, that brings you the results of the query. So this is the function. So in the back end, I'm going to implement this function. Yes. طب بالراحة عليا، أنت بتتكلم دلوقتي على where should this function be placed، صح؟ الفانكشن دي هتتحط فين؟ I didn't talk about the location of the function, the definition. I'm just saying how many things should be implemented in a single user story. So in a single user story, you will find that you need to implement the HTML page for this. You will need to implement the code, the back-end code. Plus, you will need to implement the tables needed in the database to help you facilitate this. You will find yourself creating two tables, inserting some dummy values in the account, in the orders, or whatever, in order to have this user story only working. So in a certain user story, front-end, back-end database. كل user story, every user story is going to be like this. This is the difference between فاكرين waterfall. You remember the waterfall? This is the difference. In waterfall, they will tell you no. In waterfall, we finish entirely the HTML pages first, all of the pages. And then we write the code, the back end. And then we write the database. This is what they call the another approach is the waterfall. I want to implement the backend, all the right? Any agile is different. It is essentially a hybrid. Agile is strong, a user story. A user story you can choose to start whatever you want. If you want to start by implementing the HTML pages for the first place, yeah, you can do that. If you want to start by defining only the tables in the database, you can also do that. So going back to my main question, the function that is going to relate to this user story is called find user place orders. The name of the function. So find user place orders by the seed count, and obviously it takes the seed count as an argument. Right? This is equivalent to what on an HTML page. On an HTML page, you can have a page called view. This is the title of the so view orders history, right? And you can have a search query, and this is the search box, right? And you can enter واضح كده؟ طيب. Okay. So, if you want to take a look at the SQL, I'm here to make sure that you are connecting everything together. In this university, in college, you should not be taking courses as a standalone fashion. All of the modules that you take should be connected or linked to each other by the end of the day. Whether you be the one to do this or someone guides you to it. Right? So anyway, if you want to implement the SQL for it, just remember, you have a user table, so you are finding or searching a user in Hamza. So you are searching a user by the orders that he made. How many tables do you have? Obviously, 2 tables. Take things from the user table and split things from the orders table. So this means what? This means in the terminology of the database that we are going to perform something called a join. I'm going to join the user on the table on the orders, customers on the order. And then after I get the join, I'm going to select the single seed count that is fast. Right? So it's saying select the customer name, right? Okay, this customer, who has a certain order based on this count. That's
what kind of conventions does
that's a good question. This is not what we covered before. This is what we still learn. So what is going to be still how to build the front end. Or one side. So how to build the front end is in your HTML, Flutter, intelligent stack. How to build the back end. I noticed that build it correctly or in a structured way. Just build it. So essentially this can be a tutorial on ways to search on YouTube to follow up and understand how things are done. Right? And the back end, there are a couple of terminologies that you need to take care of. Right? Because if you see these titles, do not be afraid. This is exactly what you need. If you see something related to login, registration, right? Let's talk about the concepts. The concepts, you can see something called HTTP university. Whether you are a mobile app or a web app, it's the same concepts. HTTP university, you can see something called HTTP. Well, actually, our web is found in the post. Yes, بص توقف يعني you look at the if you see the first get and post, you are going to need these. You are going to need to, or you're going to see on the information called routing or routes in general. Browsing on the web page, there's something called if I want to log in, then slash login. If I want to register, then slash register. So it's good. Right? The connection between the two. What is it? How to do that is this should be. If you want to set the SQL, then this is a prerequisite. But if I'm not going to SQL, no SQL, like Firebase, won't be detailed, whatever. This is still new. I'm going to cover inside the lab. In the next lab, I'm going to cover how to create a simple table SQL and how to connect our code there. But it's not using our framework, not using just plain Python. This is going. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to give a 3-hour session or a 2-hour session with HTML. I'm not sure about this. Perhaps this might be on the plan. Done?
على HTML and CSS. This doesn't mean that you need to work on HTML and CSS يعني أنا just يعني maybe this can help بس مش أكتر يعني. Yes. So this is the self-learn.
element اللي انا مش محتاج ان انا اكتبه is how to write clean code, clean organized code. So code organization and artificial organization. Today we are at a level of code organization. We're in low level, low code. Right? Once we enter the next week, inshallah, and software architecture, you will understand that there is a slightly higher level of organizing things. What's the difference of organizing things from a higher level? You will understand that it's easier than things. It's really easy. Okay, so this is the hard part. And clean code is the hard part. But clean architecture, the higher level, it is too easy to find.
الأسهل إن إحنا نستنى ناخد الكلين أركتشر وبعد كده نبدأ كودينج ولا نبدأ بعد كده نعمل كلين بعدين؟
لا, the approach here is يعني we are working in a chronological path. This is the great way. Because you are going to start implementing first. Right? You're going to find some method to enter it, to implement it out. So I just want to make sure that clean code-wise, on the level of code, you understand the concept. Right? Once you implemented the code, in order to, you finish the code organization level, the architectural organization, right? The architectural level, this is going to be really easy to accommodate. It's going to be really easy to refactor from a دي.
تمام؟ طيب. After this one, معلش.
Let's go to ask one last question. Where do you think that find users placed or find users placed over by system is going to be placed at? Logic or data access?
عشان انت يعني تبقى مختلف تمام انا مقدر انا بريسبكت حاجه زي كده بس انت بلاش تاني ايه طب ليه لوجيك يا جماعه exactly بصوا يا شباب شفت الانيميشن الجامد طيب
The reason that this is this doesn't functionality of the user store. This is the user store. This is the user store. ما بتعملهاش فانكشن لوجيك ده هي اللوجيك وهي اللوجيك كله تمام ان انا فايند باي تشيك اي فانكشن مثلا تشيك فايند باي دي اسمها فانكشن
Okay. Okay, so just to finish the first version.
Okay, so after doing the find point in data access, all of this is data access, but this is the previous version. We added find points, and we said that we are going to have user exists, right? So a delegation function. A function that doesn't have an identity. The logic of this function is essentially the logic of a different function. As I always wrong. That's the function. Never. It's just a waste of time. Really? Exactly. So you can tell that this function doesn't do anything. The logic, the real logic behind this user exists is within what? Find bar. But all this is doing is just adding the same that you have in the same super focus. Exactly, this is what an aggregation function does. It doesn't introduce any new concept or any new logic. مفيش logic جديد. هو اللوجيك ده اللي we have is fine, but there's no logic. Yeah? So aggregation function or capacity is just it contains the logic of the inner function.
Delegation function exception that is buttons.
No, you never test it. It's a waste of time. ليه؟ انت عارف? Do you know why we should never test these?
لأن هي ما ينفعش external logic، مش أي حاجة.
Plus something else. Probably you have already tested the inner function as well. So it doesn't really matter if I tested the one that is using it without introducing any extra information. Okay? Right. The question would be the following. One would ask himself, why do you need an aggregation function? Why do you need user exist? Like I can easily just find by and register. Right? Why do you need this one? The answer here is because we want to have communication between models. Right? For the time being, we are placing user exist in data access. And you can see from the function name that this is too specific. User exist. So this means also that we have placed the location here is wrong.
I hope الصوت واضح.
Exactly. Okay, so again, user exists if you click out at the name, and you should be at this level. You should reach this level in your project. Right? When you look at the function names, whenever we see a function name, we think or we feel like this should not be here, and this needs to be defined somewhere else. Right? Or we should look up the definition, the implementation itself, maybe the issue with the implementation. Right? But for the naming convention that I'm using, this totally doesn't fit the CRUD. We send the CRUD needs to be generic in the data access, right? So this actually fits what to be in the logic, not in the data access. Right? The second that we place this in the data access, right? You don't need to find byte from the second logic, you mean that you are going to import byte from the data access. And so essentially the communication is going to be saturated.
This is how we can create communication. So the point of delegation function
is you should understand that these are important. And it doesn't mean that it should not be tested that it's not important. This is what facilitates the communication. Modules.
عندي حتى مش خطر ما ينفعش ان احنا نحط الفانكشن على بعضها مكان الكود بتاعهم، فليه نعمل كل فانكشن حتى الفانكشن اللوجيك بتاعها نفس المكان، ليه ما ناخدش الفانكشن كلها للمكان اللي هي بتبقى احسن
اديني اكزامبل على السامبل.
يعني مثلا فاين باي مثلا دلوقتي انا باخد يوزر اكسس ديت الكود بتاع فاين باي هيبقى في اللوجيك.
يس.
ليه بقى ما ناخدش الكود على بعض؟
تحطه في logical by صح؟ In this implementation things are too simple. I only have register. تمام؟ جرب try to do this in your project. تمام؟ جرب ان دي الطريقة اللي تبتدي بيها. You will understand that at some point the file is too cluttered. It's non-cohesive. I have so many things that can be defined elsewhere. I can minimize the code, and instead of defining everything, maybe this file can only call, can only use, right? But I'm just introducing the user exists.
I'm sorry if this is confusing you, but this is there. This is there just to illustrate the concept of delegation functions. That's it. Right?
But generally, try to accommodate the approach that you said. You will find yourself needing to يعني ان انت تقسم بقى ان انت تحط الديفينيشن في مكان والكول في مكان. تمام؟ بس هي مش هتبان دلوقتي. Once in the project بس it gets slightly larger in scope. Okay? طيب. So the refactored version is that whenever we introduce the user exists, right? Obviously, the user exists need the username and the value of the username. Okay, so we are going to refactor this. This is what Abdullah actually told me in the previous.
We started with this implementation. Hand register used to take inputs inside and register inside. Obviously, this is violating the SR, the single responsibility, doing two things. So we refactor this to have the inputs separately in a function, gathering the inputs in a function, and handling the registration in a function. Hand register as well as the whole it's considered the delegation function. Right? You understand that delegation functions are important. If I didn't have this one in user interface, it doesn't make sense. وده سؤال تمام لو احنا مش عايزين delegation function. طب ما ناخد بقى الريجستر دي نحطها في اليوزر انترفيس واي ريجستر محتاجها نحطها في اليوزر انترفيس. هتلاقي ان انت لو عملت كده عندك فايل واحد السيستم عباره عن 1 فايل. اللي هو احنا بنرجع بالزمن لورا بنرجع لجيل 1 وفاونديشن. تمام؟ ف we need delegation functions in order to facilitate communication. This delegation function is going to let you import, and hence you have a communication between user interface and the logical part that you are importing. تمام؟ ايه؟ تاني عفوا مش اماجن معاك اول فانكشن
الهاندل او عشان هي هاندل هنا والثاني كان هاندل.
معلش this is just title بس you understand the idea يعني تمام.
I'm not going to run this يعني هي بس الفكره اللي هو before وال after بس مش اكتر. اوكي؟ ولا انت بتتكلم على حاجه ثانيه اصلا؟
انت بتتكلم على الار دي؟
ايوه
هو مزعلان الارض مش موجود.
فاكر دي حاجه عشان هي في لاين شير
ده يس ما احنا شلناه. انت مش فاهم الريفاكتورنج حصل ليه اصلا صح؟
يعني هي
بص in the previous version if I want to register I'm going to call one function from the user interface which is this one, and this one handles the gathering of the inputs and handles what? The registration. Okay, so I'm just going to have one function call. Let's take one function call to handle this. In the new version, I'm going to call two functions because we separated them, handling the inputs of the function. So I'm going to call this first, take the inputs, and this second for registration. So the difference of the refactoring is actually observed in the client code, in the driver code. تمام؟ هيبان في الفرونت وانت بتكول يعني الريفاكتورنج مش هيبان دلوقتي. لما تيجي تكول هتكتشف ان انت هنا بتكول حاجتين. But here you are just calling يعني one thing such as this one.
تمام؟ Okay.
So also the refactoring in the app deploy you will see that there is an if statement. تمام؟ The if statement essentially وده اللي انا كنت اقول لك عليه انه you are gathering the inputs and then you are registering. تمام؟ You gather the inputs if the user exists. In the if statement you are saying if the user exists then tell him sorry you cannot register and just exit. Okay? Else if he does not exist then just perform the registration. Okay? This is the point of refactoring.
تمام؟
This is the point of taking the inputs in a function and doing the registration in another function. تمام؟
طيب. So, the good and the bad of the first version. طيب, I'm going to discuss this as quick as possible. هخلص دي واديكوا بريك.
تخلص دي وتخلص ولا نخلص دي؟
لا هو احنا قاعدين كمان ساعة بعد ما
كمان ساعة؟
يس ان شاء الله.
احنا الجروب بتاعنا ليه
الجروب بتاعكم
خلاص
اي جروب وش جروب
الجروب بتاعنا
مع مين؟ مع دكتور احمد.
انتوا عاملين تيم مع بعض؟
خلاص
طيب الميل ده ممكن تعملوه ولا ايه؟ انا خليني اعرف معاكم كويس على فكره. يعني مش عارف
انا فاهم
بس يعني معلش اشتغل في الميتنج and just invite to the meeting. ولو في حاجه اصلا بس قلت ممكن اكتب لي كلمني وخليني نتفق. هاخد ساعه اكسترا بعد ما اخلص.
اوكي طيب take a 5-minute break.
شباب
لا هو كده ضغط
احنا هنخلص 12
شباب بعد اذنكم عشان الموضوع ده بينرفزني ما تجيش بعد تلت ساعه. بريك 10 minutes. اوكي 10 minutes.
36
شكرا يا محترم بس كده. مش عارف مين اللي كان قال لمصطفى باشمهندس مصطفى خد المفتاح واقفل عليهم. Sorted. So the good and the bad about the version 1, the first version. Okay, extremely coupling to app.py. App.py uses everything. So if it's deleted, no, there is no system. The logic.py. This is the control flow, right? So, and I really suggest that you do something like this in your report, right? Even for the current sprint, for the current implementation, not for the entire implementation. You can select parts of the implementation, right? Say that the control flow of the current modules, of the current files. What do you think about it? Do we have communication between all files? All files are communicating. There's imports in every file or not? If there is, then we can say that we have some kind of moderate communication, and this is good. In our case, we didn't have this in the first version, right? In the first version, the app.py just uses everything. The internal modules, no communication between them, right? So mention from the control flow perspective this aspect in your report, okay? From the aspect of the logic.py, okay? You can start selecting certain files or certain modules or layers. So the business logic or the logic file essentially tries to maintain a state, right? So the state in the logic file, if I just show you the code. So here, the logic file tries to maintain a state. The state is essentially this, right? By updating, right? By taking a value from the database and updating the current temporary value. تمام? We are trying to have a current copy of the database, of the users table. تمام? This is called the state يا جماعة. A state is a variable or some values that are prone to change. This is what a state is. So this current copy of the users table is stored inside logic. It can be either increased by doing a write operation or a registration operation, right? Or it can be decreased down if we deleted a certain user, right? So logic.py it's trying its best to maintain a state using this temporary users global variable, okay? The problem with the state thing is that it's maintained via globals, and there's something called side effects that I'm going to show in just a second. Why globals are considered to be evil, okay? And how object-oriented actually eliminates the need for globals. You do not need globals at all if you understand how you can work out your class and objects. Nice, right? طيب, so we have, I took the attendance. كل الناس دي يعني حضرتها, okay? طيب. Finally, the register function is violating the open closed. Right? The discussion that we have made. What if we now want to register with an extra email, with an extra password, with an extra address book? See, multiple requirements is going to change the signature of the register. Okay. The good thing, and this is something called the law of Demeter, right? Or Demeter. I don't know how to phrase it. Or actually, say it. So the law of Demeter means that this is essentially what really matters. Each unit should have only limited knowledge, right? And units should talk to each other. You should not talk to strangers. This is the law of Demeter. What does this mean from the code perspective? Right? From the code perspective, following the law of Demeter actually emphasizes or facilitates the loose coupling principle. The bad thing is high coupling. High coupling that means that so many dependencies are related to each other, right? Like high coupling here, for example, handle register is highly coupled to handle inputs, right? This is high coupling. If there is no handle inputs, this function is going to fail. You understand the idea about high coupling, right? Loose coupling is the other way around. So now we are facilitating loose coupling or implementing loose coupling. تمام او اللي هو low of the meter. Okay, so low coupling here means that if this is deleted, this is not going to be affected. تمام. No dependencies. There is no inner functions called within an outer function. Okay. برضو there's something called in law of the meter, and keep it in mind whenever we get to object oriented. There is a very very beautiful point here that is saying use only one dot. شباب حد, do you understand what this means?
You're going to just go out. Okay, so if you want to, let's say that you have an object called A, and A has a function, let's call it service. Right? And A is within B. So if you try to do something like this, A equals from A get B, and from A equal what? Now you have two inputs. You are violating what you said about the law of meter. This is essentially high coupling as well. Too many dots, you're accessing too many layers that essentially shouldn't be done. Right? So what is the solution for this? How do I switch the function? This within is inside the function from B. From B. This is from B. We access the service function from B. So ultimately, from B, access A, and then access the service function. Right? If you want to use the derivation functions, right? So the derivation function can be like this. You can say that instead of saying this, you can say that B has a function that says, for example, call service from. And this function in general is a plus A dot service.